Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Vancouver Medical Association New Westminster Medical Society event. Before I start, I just want to make a brief thanks to Alison Thomas at the Doctors of British Columbia for the incredible work she has done in making sure that we can all be in this room tonight. I wish to acknowledge that we're standing on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, for tonight's second Jim Busser Doctors of BC President-elect Memorial Debate. I'd like to acknowledge that Piers Busser, Jim's eldest son, is in the room with us tonight. Welcome, Piers, and thank you for attending on behalf of your family. I'm going to ask all of those in the room to stand, and for those of you online, for a moment to have a few seconds silence in remembering absent friends, including those that tragically left us in that bus accident near Humboldt, Saskatchewan, which has played heavily upon all of us across Canada. So if you could all rise, please, for a few seconds silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. So tonight we have Lloyd Oppel, Dr. Lloyd Oppel, and Dr. Kathleen here with us, together with our moderator, Dr. Arun Garg, who is going to be adjudicating during the course of the debate. Before we go to the debate, we're going to do paper, scissors, and stone to determine who goes first. So if the two of you would step forward and get ready. You've been practicing. So the two contestants, paper, scissors, stone, off you go. It looks like that Dr. Oppel will be going first. So last few words. I just want to say a few words about our moderator tonight, Dr. Arun Garg. He's very heavily involved with Canada-India Networking Initiative, Health Civil Society Movement, or the CINI movement, and they have their AGM coming up, and a large roundtable event starting Friday, June the 8th through Monday, June 11th. So if people could pay attention to CINI 2018, he may have a few words to say about that. So at this point, I'm going to hand you all over to Arun. Everyone's wired, and thank you very much for coming tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoy the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Busser, President of Doctors of British Columbia, President-elect, my colleagues, Doctors Lloyd Oppel, Kathleen Ross, and charming Charles West. You know, he's such a persuasive guy, you can't say no to him. So when he asks you something, you have to do. So warm welcome to the second annual Jim Busser Memorial Doctors of BC President-elect Debate 2018. This debate is really designed to inform, to engage, and to transform. Doctors have a social responsibility to deliver the best care possible, and this debate is part of this ongoing commitment to people of British Columbia that we give our best. So I'm really delighted to be part of it. As Charles said, my name is Arun Garg, just in case you didn't get it. And in the context of tonight, I was president of BC Medical Association. In those days, we used to call it BC Medical Association, 93-94. So it's been many, many years. But I just want to share with our upcoming doctors, that was one of the finest hours for me as my career. And I think that sentiment is shared by most past presidents. there's something unique about Doctors of BC that gives you in leadership. And I think our people come forward, they give their best. So I'm really looking forward for tonight's debate. And as Charles already said, I just want to say one small thing. Some of you have asked, well, you've been around a long time. What are you up to? I'm still very passionate about Canada. I'm very passionate about Medicare. And I'm really passionate about its sustainability. So I'm putting a lot of energy in sustainability of Medicare through population health. So this conference coming up in June is based on how to engage, how to use technology, how to innovate in chronic diseases. And we want to declare war on chronic diseases because they are the tsunami of the future. So if you're interested, I'll be happy to talk about it later. It should be a very good meeting. Having said this now, let's get to the business of the day. Debate is very simple. It's really designed, already getting some questions, I think. Debate is designed to maximize the participation, but with fair and equitable ground rules. The ground rules are, we'll open with 2 minutes by each candidate. Then they will have 3 minutes each to rebut, to clarify, and to make sure that the comments they were saying are clear and concise. And my job mainly is timekeeper, but also make sure that it remains fair and equitable. After that, we'll open for questions, and we already have 4 or 5 questions, but we'll take 2 or 3 from the ground here, then we'll do SMS and emails, and then we'll alternate. After that, some concluding by the 2 candidates, and that's it. I hope you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it last year, and I'm really looking forward personally for this privilege to be your moderator. In all doctors, there is this hidden thing about being on camera, so I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, and without further ado, we'll get right into it. And you have been the chosen one, so you will start, and you will have 2 minutes to share your thoughts as the opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Arun. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Dr. Lloyd Oppel, and I am running for president-elect of our association, the Doctors of BC. I am mindful that I've got 2 minutes here, and I've been told that I'll be punished severely if I go over, so I'll keep it short.
Can you start the clock?
And sweet. Well, it looks like I've got a new lease on life here. This is great. There we go. Hey, there's 10 seconds missing. All right. Well, yes. I want to thank everybody for coming out as well. It's a nice evening in Vancouver, so your sacrifice is all the more poignant for taking the time away. I'd like to thank our host, the Vancouver Medical Association and the Westminster Medical Society, for making this venue possible. And you're right, Arun, when you get a request from Charles Webb, you don't dare refuse, but it's a bit like getting an invitation from Emperor Nero to come and play in the Coliseum. I'm not quite sure which place I want to be, but I'm here now. I'd also want to thank my honorable fellow candidate, Dr. Kathleen Ross, for being here. Thanks. Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that we are meeting on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I must say I feel a sense of deja vu. I've been here at least once before under fairly similar circumstances, so I hope you're not getting too tired of me, but I must say it's always good to be back among friends. I'm fairly well known for keeping my comments short, so I will. I do want to touch on a couple of things. I'll let you know a little bit about my background, and then I'll tell you a little bit about myself personally. I started in medical politics as a resident. I was chatting earlier this evening about that. I used to work on the executive of Perry, BC, ran the newspaper that was called Periscope, always hoping we could torpedo the government, don't you know? That was back in the 80s. I ran the resident newspaper there. Was involved in negotiations with government. After that, I went on to join the board of the BCMA, and I've been on that for about 10 years now. I'm vice chair of the board. I'm chair of Council of Specialists of BC, chair of the Environmental Health Committee under Council of Health Promotion. I feel there's been a common thread, which is to bring all the diverse opinions, the energy, the expertise that doctors have to offer to allow us to meet our common goals and lead the way forward in medicine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, right on 2 minutes. Thank you.
High five.
Thank you.
I'll take 2 seconds and plug your conference because I did go to the last one and it was truly exceptional and I would highly recommend it to everyone. You can go ahead and start now. Thank you. So I won't repeat the welcoming and thank you comments that Lloyd's put forward, but I did want to touch on a few things. There are just too many issues facing all the physicians in British Columbia to sum them up in a 2-minute phase. But in my opinion, all of the losses that we've suffered as a profession in the last 2 decades have actually centered around a few things: around physician devaluement, around disengagement, and around increasing barriers to providing care. Our autonomy as physicians and as a profession is actually under attack. We're being made to work harder and longer to meet the demands of our patients, but actually also to meet the financial demands of just simply keeping our offices open. These are challenging times for our students and for our residents. Future employment is actually not guaranteed. Don't take that hard. And sometimes even finding a spot to complete your training is actually not guaranteed. And our students are struggling under the burden of this uncertainty. Burnout and disillusionment has actually become quite common among our members, and there are multiple reasons for that. Taking care of ourselves has become a low priority for many physicians, and unfortunately we're becoming unhealthy to the point that we're taking our own lives, in part because we are being increasingly devalued on all sides. In my opinion, we must stand together united and force the government to understand the real value of physicians and why we need to be compensated in a form comparable to others of similar training and importance to the population. All physicians have value, and all physicians deserve to be compensated appropriately for their knowledge and for their work. And finally, I'll introduce myself in closing and say that I stand for equity, I stand for inclusivity, diversity, but most importantly, above everything else, I stand for unity within our organization. Thank you.
Each of you have 3 more minutes to add anything, make any comments, or rebut. So we'll start with you.
Oh, I get to go backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's excellent, actually. I'm very pleased, and I have a bit of time to actually acknowledge it. I actually have with me 3 guests tonight, 2 residents, one in family practice and one in orthopedics, and a poor medical student that I've been torturing for the last 2 weeks. And I think it's really important that our learners are actually here on the ground, understanding what this looks like in a democratic process and having a chance to interact and meet some of the upper echelon in the leaders and well-known leaders as we move forward. They are our greatest resource, absolutely our greatest resource, and we need to work to protect them and support them in any way that we can moving forward. There are issues with regards to paying physicians to support our learners moving forward, and I think that does deserve some focus. I won't go on that unless there's a question around it, but I think that actually is critically important as we try and support the next generation moving forward. We need to look after ourselves and foster care amongst ourselves so that we can become a more cohesive organization that actually is happy to be at work, happy to interact with our patients, and building role models for the younger generation coming forward. I think I'll leave it at that, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Lloyd, you have 3 minutes. As I said, any comments, additional comments, rebut, or any?
Well, I do have some comments. Thank you. I'll share them with you. First of all, I agree with everything Kathleen said. I think that was very well spoken, actually, and quite from the heart. I think the challenges, building on what Kathleen was saying, that I am concerned about relate to the nibbling away of the profession around the edges. We have things in the landscape that I think we really need to attend to, particularly vis-a-vis our relationship with government and with the health authorities. And I'll preface these comments by saying that we've made huge gains by taking a very collaborative approach with government. When government is seeking cost containment, we've been able to go to them in areas of shared need where government's priorities have been answered, as well as the aspirations of our members. The successes of collaborative committees like GPSC, for example, I think are there to be acknowledged. And yet we still have cost constraints and a desire by various agencies to corral in resources and starve the system. So we need to be very wary of moves by health authorities to balance their budgets in ways that might stop doctors from practicing to their full extent or might deny patients access to needed resources. That's a real issue, and it strikes at our very professionalism where we want to practice our craft in a way that will benefit patients the most. I'm concerned about overregulation of the profession. Everybody in this room knows about the hassles of the paperwork, the faxes, the emails that come in, for which you are apparently responsible according to the CMPA, but are achieving volumes that were unthinkable maybe 20 years ago. There are those types of things that prevent us from even getting to the patient, and then there are other things that would stop a doctor from being able to practice in terms of regulations in the sense that you must do quality 360s, or perhaps your office where you're offering minor procedures has to bring in an air conditioning and autoclave system that would make the Starship Enterprise look antique. These are all challenges that I think we really do need to address. And I think that what we need to do is be sure that at the leadership level, we can draw on the corporate memory, the experience, and the talent around us to meet those challenges and ensure that we are the leaders in defining quality healthcare for the benefit of our patients.
Thank you.
Can I have my minute back now?
Okay, to give her that minute back she didn't have? Or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So actually, I couldn't agree with you more, Lloyd, and it's been quite the ride over the last 12 years, being a part of that interaction right from the grassroots divisions of family practice and on their tailcoats, the medical staff societies, and actually working hands-on with the ministry and with the health authorities and with community members to try and find better ways to work that actually engage physicians from the ground level up, so that these cost constraints that we're talking about, we understand from both sides, and we have the ability to work at it from both sides and find a solution that works for all, and keeping, of course, the patient at the forefront of that. Through the shared care work through Fraser Northwest has been absolutely incredible to be able to streamline and save the system money in a number of areas, including orthopedics and mental health, as two of our flagships for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the hour has arrived when it's your turn to really engage and ask some probing questions. I want to thank both candidates for setting the tone, setting the ground rules, and I feel really excited just listening to them that they provide the leadership which is necessary. So we'll start with the floor questions. So floor is open, and maybe we could have first one just come to the microphone is the rope, is that working? Is that alive? So identify yourself.
Oh, sorry. I'm Simon Rapkin, and I'm a cardiologist at VGH. And so I have no vested interest in the question I'm going to ask, which is a question that our surgical colleagues have been asking the Vancouver medical staff. And that revolves around the fact that the government is asking for more kinds of surgical procedures, but has the envelope of surgical availability fixed. So basically what happens when the government has mandated more hips and knees to be done, that displaces other kinds of surgical procedures. Or when the government has mandated the fact that autistic kids should have dental work, that means that there are fewer ORs for maxillary facial surgery, and numerous examples like that. So how do you specifically plan to ensure that government does not provide a fixed box and therefore displace other surgical procedures, but rather be able to expand the operation? If they want more procedures done, then they have to provide more funding or alternative approaches. Specifically, how would you address those questions?
Thank you. I think question is very clear, and as the ground rules will alternate. So I'll ask Kathleen to be the first one, 2 minutes, and then you for 2 minutes, and then we'll alternate.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that question, actually. And of course, working in Royal Columbia, and we struggle with the same issues, being asked to do more with less. We've had some success in actually working on efficiencies within the operating room, things like changing over our OR time, which was sometimes taking up a big part of our slate during the day. How do you force the government to actually do anything? I think that's a bit more of a challenge, but you can't solve a problem unless you are actually part of the solution. So if we can have a venue whereby the health authority and the government and our surgeons can actually all meet together to understand what are the stumbling blocks. We've had some early successes in doing this, and I think that's the right approach.
Thank you. Lloyd, your response?
Yeah, well spoken, my noble colleague. I think that's correct. I mean, organizations that we have now, like PSAC, can be part of that. This is, needless to say, an enormous topic of conversation at Specialists of BC, where people are feeling squeezed to provide more, but the support aren't there. I agree that we aren't going to get a solution unless we're part of the conversation. I'm hopeful that the new changes around SSC may offer some help in that regard. We definitely need to tell government that we want to be players in this from the ground up. It's one of the problems that Arun is articulating, is the politicization of healthcare, where solutions to one problem are simply squeezing the problem onto someone else. And that really is a tragedy for patients who aren't sort of in the limelight du jour. I think that the best way forward, however, is to get the broadest consensus possible from the doctors who know the most about how the system works, and have them generate some solutions, whether it's supports for physicians in practice, physician assistants, nurses in practice, something to help those physicians get more done during the day and expand the ability of doctors to do what they need to do. I think that's probably our best option.
Good, thank you. I think I'll this time bring a question which I received in the mail. The question is from former President of Doctors of BC, Dr. Alan Rudman. And Dr. Rudman, first of all, sends his regrets that he couldn't be here in person because of the practice pressures. But his question is, in seeking to recognize equity as a principle for attracting physician leadership on Doctors of BC board to Representative Assembly, on committees, and in elected office, is there a role for membership electing alternating GP and specialist president, or does this play to tokenism and undermine the true merits of democracy within the association? And the question goes to you first.
Yes. No.
Short answer, yes.
Well, I am of the belief that we do want to have governance that can represent the span of the membership. How we go about doing that, I think, is perhaps where the devil lives. I think we've done a good job so far of making sure that we do hear from the members all across the spectrum. The Representative Assembly goes a long way to doing that. We really do bend over backwards to make sure that there's equality of opportunity in populating the ranks. In fact, I can tell you, as chair of COPE for many years, where we had 50, 60 physicians trying under our charge, trying to just get people to volunteer was sometimes a problem. But to be a little more specific, I do not believe in earmarked positions. I think that we should have, we serve our members best, and we do work for the members. We serve them best if we do what we can to make sure that the job gets done. And I think we want to pick the best people with the best experience and the best knowledge and enthusiasm to do it.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Well, this is probably the wrong year to ask us that question, since we have a GP running against a GP emerge doc. But I agree with Dr. Oppel. I think it would be wrong to actually say 1 year must be one type of physician and another type of physician, because I truly believe that there are specialists who represent the best interests of family physicians, and there are certainly specialists like myself who actually have a great deal of familiarity with the issues around specialists and GPs. And I think what we're looking for in leadership is a broad spectrum of skills that we're able to translate into the most equitable attention being paid to all physician issues and concerns. So I think that I agree that earmarking would not be in our best interest. Now, diversity and equity in leadership other than the upper echelon position of president-elect, I definitely support. And I do believe that we are a diverse, very different organization, and it's not until we start listening to all those diverse voices that we're actually going to be able to capitalize on all the robust knowledge that sits out there. So our representative assembly has been a great start in that process. The meetings that we had in February to hear the concerns around the upcoming negotiation allowed each section to present what their views were and what was important from their members' perspective. And in some cases, for the first time, some of the sections actually felt that they were broadly heard and broadly listened to. The first part, of course, represented the alternate payment physicians who felt that we had been neglecting them for quite some time. And for the first time, we had an academic clinical faculty member also on the RA with a vote, able to present their perspective. So it's my hope that we will shy away from saying we must have this or that type of person and look to the broader diversity and the best representation.
Thank you. I hope some politicians are watching this debate. You know, the difference in doctors and politicians is we don't mince our words. The answer is clear. And both of them gave a very clear answer. Alan, I hope you got your answer. I think we go back to the floor and we have a speaker.
Great. Microphone's on. I'm Guri Parr, Executive Associate Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at UBC. So firstly, Dr. Ross, thank you very much for inviting residents and medical students to this event. And you can imagine my focus is going to be on an educational type question. We have 8,500 clinical faculty members at UBC, 7,000 are physicians. So approximately half of the Doctors of BC members are clinical faculty. So remembering our Hippocratic Oath, I think a lot of us are fulfilling that by teaching, and I thank all our clinical faculty members for doing that. I guess my question to both of you is, as the president of the Doctors of BC, what more should you be doing, and what more should we be doing as members of the Doctors of BC for our residents and our medical students and our future generations of physicians?
Thank you. Kathleen, your turn.
What more? Oh my goodness. Well, I mean that brings up a lot of issues. Actually, I think that the main thing we could do certainly more for our students is to look at being an excellent role model and mentors. And the definition of mentor, of course, is going to be different depending on who you're talking to and what a mentor might need from a mentee, or vice versa. Pardon me, a mentee might need from a mentor would be different for each student. I think that there are significant gaps in our mentoring for our residents and our students around the issues of career choices and job opportunities. I think that there could be a lot more that we could do to try and get people early speaking about what it looks like when you're finished, as far as where you will live and how you will work. I think there's a great deal that could be done to mentor our students and more, and no offense to Dr. Parhar, I know he does a lot in this, but a great deal to try and support our students as they build a culture of respect in a workplace, so that they feel included, so that they're not feeling belittled or put down in any way. They're not feeling discriminated against, and that they have choices and the ability to open up and speak when there's a problem or an issue in a non-judgmental fashion. I think that would be a good one.
Thank you. Sir, your turn.
Well, I certainly agree with Kathleen's comments yet again. Building on that, I would say that I think an area where our association has not put enough focus is on the strategic importance, and I do think we have a real strategic issue here, the importance of making sure that the people coming up behind us have the right training and mentorship to be fit for purpose and do their job as well as they possibly can. I think, taking from Dr. Parhar's statistics, and I know them, I was on the UBC ECMA liaison committee for a number of years, and this came up. We do have, half the doctors practically as teachers. We're still waiting for the checks, by the way. But that's another issue. We do have, I think, some call on being involved in to make sure that those elements of what it is that make up practice are incorporated into the curriculum and stay there. We have a very great interest in being sure that we are the top quality product out there. The public looks to us for being medical experts where the buck stops, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that our voice is heard in that regard at the Faculty of Medicine. I think we definitely want to lobby the CMA on this issue as well. I sat for 6 years on the Committee for the Accreditation of Canadian Medical Schools, and I know there's debate at the CMA as to whether they even want to stay in that business. They've certainly gotten out of the CME business, but I think it is a very serious mistake for the CMA to back away from this issue, because if we can't make sure that we continue as the leaders in the quality of healthcare practice.
So the question really is that doctors in practice are really who help newly trained doctors who have science to turn into art of medicine, and how and who should ensure that they are compensated for it, and what are the terms of service.
Right. I know exactly what he's talking about. This was an issue that came up again with the clinical faculty. Dave, you should be answering this question. you know all about it. That is a very tricky issue. And I'll tell you what it comes down to is the Combines Act, which has at its nub the fact that you cannot set a price for something unless you are specifically by legislation allowed to do so. This applies to clinical faculty. The Doctors of BC is allowed by law to set a price, the fee guide, for example. They're not in violation of the Competition Act or the Combines Act. But if you do it in other areas, like selling apples on the street, you're seen to be price fixing. And this principle applies to clinical faculty. And the university has told us on more than one occasion that if we were to ever try to do that, we would be taken to court. And our best advice on that from our legal team was that the university would win. So who sets the price? Well, we do it through collaboration, cooperation, and making the best way forward that we can with all the voices at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Well, I don't think I can answer that question quite as well as Dr. Oppel. I do agree. I think that we recognize that 1 and 2 physicians actually do provide teaching in their offices. We recognize that there's a stagnation of contract between the university, UBC, and the Doctors of BC. How we solve that issue, I think, is a little bit more complex than I can answer in a 2-minute conversation. But essentially, these doctors are providing their time and mentorship to create our new physicians in the next generation, without having had a raise in the last 8 years. So this is it's a poignant and very important question for sure. The faculty voted and definitely wanted to continue teaching because they see that this is an important part of their role as a physician as per CanMeds. How we move forward and who sets the price, I'm afraid that is a very complex issue, and I agree that we need to have multiple players at the table. As it stands right now, the Doctors of BC and CEO do meet regularly with UBC, their CEO as well, and to try and move this issue forward. But it's a complex, yet to be decided concern.
Okay. So I think it's time for a question from the floor. I'm sure, come on here and use the microphone because I think it's being taped. I don't think camera could reach there. I think that's live. That microphone is live. So thanks, Rob. Just identify yourself, and I think that's live. That microphone.
Yes. Thank you for recognizing me, Dr. Garg. I am pleased that I see 2 such capable people willing to stand and be the leaders of the most visible group representing practicing physicians in British Columbia. Thank you both for letting me stand. I find myself as a physician surgeon listening to the radio advertising the waiting time for the major hospitals in the Vancouver coastal area of several hours to see a doctor. I find that, if not offensive, at least very upsetting for me as a physician, and it's a measurable figure to show the lack of capacity in our system, the lack of our ability to provide care, a barrier to access to care that's measured in time. And I'm wondering if our 2 candidates would care to comment on how they might approach this. I heard Dr. Kathleen Ross say that perhaps our current organization and institutions need to be reorganized to bring a new venue into play to address some of these issues which were mentioned by Dr. Rapkin and others that we've heard. But I'd be glad to hear our candidates address the issue of lack of access to emergency room care.
Thank you. All right, Kathleen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hayden. That's a timely question, and I feel like you set me up here. The overcrowding that we have in our emergency services to a large extent relates to our lack of access in the community for primary care. There are multiple things that present ourselves in our emergency department that could be cared for in a family physician's office if it was appropriately resourced. This brings us to the issue of primary care reform, where we will need to try and find a way to move forward in such a fashion that we support those doctors willing in the community to provide continuous, comprehensive, and longitudinal care with extended hours and perhaps additional allied health professionals to improve the services that we're able to provide. We've seen a slight devolution in the number of doctors willing to present themselves as primary care physicians in the community for a variety of reasons. Some of our young physicians look at the financial tasks involved in running an office and find them overwhelming. The workload in the community is becoming more and more of a challenge, and the financial rewards to carry out that work are becoming less and less over time. We've seen an evolution of episodic care, the walk-in style medicine, that's to a certain extent driven by the lack of primary care, but to a larger extent driven by the lack of extended hours and access that patients are demanding. Our patients live high demand, high speed, need to get it on their time care, and community physicians are unable to meet that need at this moment. And it's for that reason that they present themselves in the emergency department. And that's assuming that those patients actually have aligned themselves with a community practice of any kind. There are a large number of patients in the community who are not able to align themselves with the practice, and the only way forward is to do something to support the care in the community and to look at using physician extenders and allied health to make that possible.
Thank you. Lloyd?
Yeah, I think those are definitely the major parts of the long-term solution to this. As you can imagine, as an emergency physician, this is a matter of some tremendous interest. My friend's reaction to hearing the wait times broadcasted on the radio could hardly have been greeted with less enthusiasm by our group than if they'd put planes over False Creek with banners saying, "Doctors are waiting for you at the emergency room." It seems to drive people in some ways to the place that has the shortest wait time. But your more trenchant part of the question really is the lack of resources in the system and the lack of family doctors out there who are still able to offer longitudinal care. I don't want to give too facile an answer to this. This is a multi-headed hydra. And part of that is going to be resourcing the community care so that there are physician extenders and ways of attaching patients to physicians so they have somewhere to go. But we also have to face up to the fact that a lot of this issue is that we are somewhat victims of our own success, and that we have been so good at keeping people alive longer and with more complex diseases that those people are going to hit the wall at some point, and usually they do so in an extremely more complex way, and that makes its way to the emergency rooms as well. So there are some fixes to the system that perhaps are lower hanging fruit. Some of those will be reorganizing deck chairs, so to speak. I think we really do need to, and I agree with Kathleen, to try to expand primary care to make sure that people at least have a place to go to manage those illnesses and reduce the likelihood that they go to emergency rooms. But maneuvers like let's build St. Paul's Hospital with very few beds in it, that has not gone over well with the section of emergency medicine. And no matter how good your primary care is, people are still getting sicker, older, and more complex. And we're going to need to expand the system to accommodate that.
Thank you. I have a few more questions already sent to me, so maybe I'll take one which was sent to me. While I'm doing that, I will encourage you to think of more questions and your participation. So this question was sent by Dr. David Wensley and related to recognizing the current and predicted ongoing acute shortage of physicians to care. As President of Doctors of BC, what strategies will you champion to ensure adequate physician manpower for British Columbia, both in short and long term? And according to my notes, it's your turn.
Okay, I'll go first again. So this question, actually, I'm happy to take it first. That's fine. This question actually goes again to primary care and primary care resourcing. And I think that we do have a great deal of manpower out in the community as far as primary care access goes that we're simply not capitalizing on for a variety of reasons. The buzzword of the day is the primary care home and the primary medical home and primary care networks, patient care networks, sorry. And I think that those are methods that we're working on developing that will hopefully expand access for patients in the community. So I think as president of the Doctors of BC, I encourage us to work forward on those alternate care models, and hopefully we'll be able to attach every physician to a family practice of some description in the community, although what that family practice and what those patient care homes are going to look like it remains to be seen. I think it's different depending on who you talk to. Our vision moving forward, I think, needs to be patient-centric, and services wrapped around patients has to be our key. I think that it is important that as we build these networks, that physicians are actually part of the conversation to understand what's going to make the system work and not make the system work. But even more importantly, we need patients to tell us what they need. I hear from my specialty colleagues that they're a little bit disappointed and harbor some resentment that they're not being included in part of this human resourcing and reform of how we deliver primary care in the community. And to their credit, they're correct. We actually do need to have specialists as part of the community and part of the discussion as we build these new models of care. Because without them, unfortunately, we can't have a good integrated source of care for each of our patients. I dream of the practice where I can actually see my patient in the office and access every service that they need wrapped around them with the click of a mouse.
Okay. All right, sir. Your turn.
Well, yes. Again, very good points. I think Dr. Ross has made. In terms of championing something, if you want a sort of a more direct answer, David, I think there are maybe a couple of pieces of low-hanging fruit that we haven't been able to acquire yet. One of them would be physician assistants, who are now licensed in most provinces in Canada, are trained in quite a different model than nurse practitioners, and in the main come in a little bit cheaper, but are essentially trained to work with physicians and help them, not in an apprenticeship situation per se, but very much in a situation where they come to know the practice and gather more and more responsibility, always under the guidance of the physician. What I like about that model, and what I think is a principle that I would certainly champion, is if supports do come into primary care, it really should be on terms that the doctor finds simpatico. What I think we want is models of payment or practices that are offered to us perhaps by health authorities where your staff are chosen for you. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but I would suggest that a better way is to work with the physicians from the ground up to say, what can we do to help add supports into your practice on the most workable terms. Physician assistants, I think, offer that in other provinces in Canada. It's an untapped resource, and we've gone to government many times. I was in the discussions myself over the years. There is resistance within the ministry, but I think that would be one short-term solution that could open up a fair bit of opportunity. So that's a specific answer to your specific question.
Good. I think it's time for a question from the floor. I'm sure there must be some burning question. Here we are. Thanks. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Good evening. So I'm your current president, and I've learned a lot about the job over the last year. And so given that a huge part of your role is to be the spokesperson and the face of the organization, I'm interested in what each of you think would be the biggest strength that you would bring to that aspect of the job, and what's the most important message you would want to send the membership at this time.
So I think, Lloyd, it's your turn to respond first.
Well, thank you. Yeah, as the spokesperson and the face for the organization, well, I think it is of some value to have some corporate memory and experience in how the organization works. That's something that you would want to bring to the field. In terms of the face, well, I've had the media training already through COPE, so that's something that I'm glad I have. What message would I send the membership? I would tell them, get engaged, let us know what your priorities are. Let us know what's driving you crazy. Come to us when you have help. We are working on it, and we have people who are out in the community now, all over the province. Please don't be shy. Tell us about yourselves.
Okay.
What strengths do I bring? Well, I think that I'm a fairly good speaker, and I can think definitely on my feet. As far as what I would send to the membership as a message is that I have worked in urban and rural, hospital-based and community-based practices. I've worked in very isolated areas, sometimes working out of a tent when it comes to managing Girl Guide camps for large numbers of international girls. I understand what limited resources are. I understand what limited access looks like. I have a very broad spectrum of knowledge when it comes to surgical services and obstetrical care and on-the-ground community service, and particularly in mental health, where the stumbling blocks are. I think I have the ability to represent you. I'm open absolutely to learning about what are your problems and what are your issues, and I look forward to collaborating with you on solving those issues in a fashion that's actually acceptable to both sides. Thank you.
Thank you. As a past president and a moderator, I will take an appropriate prerogative of him and ask my question following current president's question. As reflecting on wanting to be a president, and year goes fast, very fast. So my question is, have you given any thought, what is the real issue or the problem which needs to be solved during that year? One specific problem where you're going to focus, and that will have a legacy. And I think it's your first time.
Okay, no problem. Actually, my keen interest is in actually improving the engagement and involvement of our members directly in the work that we do at Doctors of BC. It saddens me greatly during this campaign process to actually approach members and ask, would you be willing to listen to my mandate? Would you be willing to work? And hear who I think are very engaged and educated people say that they have never actually joined Doctors of BC and don't understand its value. I would like to improve the communication out to our members of all the good work that we do at Doctors of BC, and I would encourage them to have that as a two-way conversation and feedback that information. We are extremely fortunate in this year because we have reorganized our governance model inside of Doctors of BC to include the Representative Assembly, and that provides you a direct channel on a grassroots local level to provide your feedback and raise issues or concerns. Although the Representative Assembly is still in its infancy and to a large extent still finding its feet, it is definitely the place that we are building a safe forum for discussion of sensitive and burning issues to all the members. Every section, has a representative there, and every section has a voice. We have an equal number of specialists and generalists actually that attend those meetings to keep the balance and diversity broad. And I believe that is what I'd like to see grow during this year.
Thank you. Lloyd?
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting question. Different presidents, I guess, have come at this in different ways, and many of whom have really tried to put a stamp on their year in the presidency. I'm not much of a fan of that. I think that in some ways, if you take a longer-term view of what can be achieved and what's possible and what progress you'd like to make, it's a multi-year process. And I'm on record many times as saying, if you haven't got your main bulk of your work done before you become the president, you're not going to get it done in 12 months that you're there because you're on the road too much. And progress is there to be made in incremental ways. I would like to make sure that we continue to focus on our strategic plan and have a very clear view of what it is that makes doctors valuable, what it is that the public values about us, because I think those things will help to inform us greatly in terms of the policies and tactics that we employ in the years ahead to make sure that our members can practice their craft not only to their satisfaction but to the betterment of the patients. So I have to dodge the question a bit. I'm not really looking at leaving a legacy. If it was anything, I'd like people to say that I worked for the members.
That's the legacy. You answered it very well. Okay, from the floor.
Hi, Eric Kadeski. I'm a family physician in Vancouver and the President-elect of Doctors of BC. And thank you so much to the VMA and to the Westminster Medical Society for organizing this today, and to Dr. Garg for moderating, and for our two candidates for standing for this position and being so honest, and in this time of very turbulent politics, for being so gosh darn respectful and Canadian towards each other. I'm hoping we can spend the last part of our evening today trying to find out what's different between the two of you. We only get one vote, unless the Russians are involved, in which case we get several. One of the things that I've learned about the position is that so much of it is going to have to do with communication. And as you've spoken about, not just us letting our members know about the services we provide and what we're doing, but also listening. And one of the great tools that we have is social media. Alan Rudiman was probably the first president to take a hold of this. And this year, Trina Larson-Souls did an excellent job of getting out our messages and listening to members with social media. And several of her stories were picked up by mainstream media and viewed tens of thousands of times. I'd like to hear more about your personal experience using social media and how, during your presidency, you would plan to use this tool to not just push messages, but also listen to our members.
Social media and your personal experience, Lloyd, first.
Well, first, cut at that, and I'll give an unvarnished knee-jerk reaction, is that if one looks south of the border, one might hesitate to have the president directly engaged in social media. I would probably work very closely with the communications department to make sure that what went out was in the right format and the right venue. My personal experience, LinkedIn, email, I've had a little bit of an adventure in Twitter, haven't gone too far with it. I think those are all important things. I think they're especially useful tools for reaching the younger members. Things like video conferencing, Skype. There's lots of venues out there that also will help people to participate in the organization on committees. So those, I think, would be the main opportunities that I would see coming up.
That's excellent. I'm going to expand a little bit on your question. Certainly from a social media point of view, I actually have loved being on Twitter and getting to understand a little bit what people are interested in and what's going on across the country, and in fact across the world in some cases. It's been fantastic and really amazing to understand that. But it also surprises me at times when I put something deeply personal or genuine out there on how I think or feel about a particular issue. And I get support coming back from all walks of life, and really is an amazing crowd source. We use a great deal, just to expand on what Dr. Oppel said. We use a great deal of internet-based and web-based information management when we're managing and enhancing our pathways tool across the province. And although that's not social media to communicate out, it does actually communicate with each of our members. So I think that, yes, I love Twitter and I will continue to use it. I think that's a great way of sharing and learning. But I think that there are other ways that we can share knowledge with our members.
Okay, good. So we have another 20 minutes, so you have a chance to answer a few more questions. Maybe I'll take one from the floor. I have one more which has been sent, so we'll read that after Richard's question. Richard?
Thank you. I'm Richard Merchant. I'm the president of the Westminster Medical Association. I'm not the president of any Doctors of BC organization, because I probably shouldn't be. But I think Eric's point of focusing on your two wonderful candidates as individuals is very good, and I thank you both for standing, because it's vitally important we do this. Sometimes, as I look at my hair and I look at Dr. Parvar's hair, I think, God, I'm getting past my best before date. I know I am as president of the WMA. Nobody else will take it on, that's the problem. But now each of you brings a variety of different experiences to the BCMA, but we have a new BCMA. I think it's a very different organization since the changes that have been brought about by the Change Group. So maybe you could just tell us, maybe you're after your best before date. Maybe you've been involved for so long that you shouldn't be president. So please defend yourselves why you're actually trying to do this.
Okay.
Well, despite the color of my hair, Richard, I don't think I've hit my prime yet, actually. I feel like I'm just getting into my stride, actually. No, I'm actually tremendously empowered with the changes that the Doctors of BC, and it is Doctors of BC, Dr. Merchant has not been the BCMA for a while now, but the changes that Doctors of BC have made to broaden its representation for the membership, I think is got me very, very excited and enthused, and I hope I'm not before my best before date, because I do feel like this is a time to re-engage and empower our physicians through the province, and I think we're ramping up and not ramping down. And I think that's what our goal should be, actually, to reach broader membership and to become more broadly representative.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question. I can tell you, I started off again back in the early 90s with PARBC and went on to the BCMA from 94 onwards. What drives me there and what makes me think it's worthwhile is, and I'll tell you quite honestly, I think that medicine is one of the best gifts that we've been able to deliver as a program in human endeavor. The last 100 years alone have been just an amazing boon to humanity. I'm excited by that. I'm excited by the fact that we've used the best available science to give good treatments for care of patients. This is something to be proud of, not just as a physician, but as a citizen of the planet. It really is a fantastic enterprise. How can we help doctors to do their job better? Well, getting involved with the association is certainly one way. I'm not a scientist. I can't make up the cures, but I can help doctors do their job. I truly am motivated and excited by the long-term goals and strategies that will help us to get there. As chair of COPE, I've been very interested in being able to speak to the public on things that further the public health and their own health. One of the things I'm proudest of, that I brag about when people ask me your question, is the Partners in Prevention paper we did in collaboration with the ministry, looking at the best scientific evidence for things that work, that could be preventive measures, vaccines, fluoride varnish, not smoking, all those things, delivering that to the public. That really is, I think, something to sit in your rocking chair when you're 80 years old and look back and say, boy, I'm glad I was a part of that. And I'm glad I was part of letting doctors do their work and deliver excellent care and compassionate care for people. It's not a one-year plan for me. I hope to be back.
Good. All right, there have been some fireworks, but I think I'll take this question, which might have a little bit more fireworks. And this is a question sent to us by an accountant. So I think there are people other than doctors who are interested.
Twitter.
Art Laruski from Victoria writes, I'm very concerned and appalled low remuneration of my doctor receives. So his question is, what action are you going to take to correct this glaring abnormality, and when are you going to act on it and correct the problem? And I think, Lloyd, you are the lucky one to answer first.
Oh, lucky me. It is a great question. What action are we going to take? Well, one reflection I have on that question is that I would argue that, well, of course I wouldn't argue. We're all underpaid. Everybody is underpaid. If you look at what is charged in the private sector for services similar to ours, we're underpaid. That being said, we have to exist within a system, and it's a good system. A strong publicly funded system is extremely important. It's part of our national identity. We definitely want to be right behind that. We also want to be behind making sure that all Canadians get the care they need, regardless of ability to pay. So, as a noble profession, how do we marry the two? Well, I would suggest that one of the ways to do that is to make sure that, when times are good, well, we've had great handsome increases in those times. When times are bad, it hasn't been so much, and we can grumble. But I think if we keep our eyes on the chalice, which is that if we can be the people who are in control of determining medical quality, we are the best trained people. We lead the way to the future of medicine, so that the powers that be will not even think of going to anyone but us when it comes to defining what is good medical care. Then we will always be that cork that floats to the top. And I don't mean that in a crass way, but I think that answers the question to some degree. I think we have to take a long-term view, see what's possible, and shoot for that, and make sure that we are the best trained people in the landscape.
Okay, Kathleen?
Okay, well, I think it's an excellent question, actually, because I hear that from my patients all the time, actually. Why can't we pay family physicians better? Why can't we get people to come into longitudinal care? And they're complicated questions. Unfortunately, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, physicians to a certain extent have been devalued. They've been devalued by a lot of our stakeholders as a result of tight fiscal concerns. We've been devalued in the press and in the media in various different ways. We've been devaluing ourselves, actually, to a large extent, in some of the not MSP funded services that we provide. But the goal in all of those things, at the bottom end of the day, I suspect if you ask the majority of physicians why they are in medicine, the remuneration isn't going to be their answer. I'm a staunch advocate for improved physician remuneration. There is no question about that, but particularly where it relates to the increased cost of doing business and the increased cost of the infrastructure that we as physicians absorb to deliver patient care in the province. So I would like to see addressed in the next physician master agreement real consideration of overhead costs and what it costs physicians to run a private practice, be that in a family practice or in a community specialty practice. I'd like to see some focus on the cost of doing business for our hospital-based specialists as far as education costs go, insurance costs, etc. I think this is a critical way of improving our remuneration and supporting physicians moving forward.
Thank you. I think clock is ticking, so please do think of questions. We have time for another 2 or 3 questions, so I think I'd love to have those and have some real with it. Have these guys going at each other, you know? Get the most out of it. This is a lot of fun. Sir.
Thank you. So I'm Tommy Gershman. I'm a pediatrician. I think what I hear from a lot of my specialist colleagues is that the Doctors of BC for a long time has been more GP focused, and a lot of decisions with GPs in mind. It's been GP led for a number of years. And part of, I think, the reason for that too is that there's been effort, especially in recent years, to focus on getting everybody a family doctor and so on and so forth. And so my question is thinking about specialists and what you think that are the number one issues or the main issues that specialists feel that need to be tackled. We do hear that specialist wait lists, people are more and more concerned about how long it takes to see specialists and similar. But what are your thoughts in terms of what the priorities for specialists in BC might be?
Thank you.
So I mean, I've worked with a great deal of specialists on a broad variety of topics in my work through shared care and in my 25 years living and working at Royal Columbian, living and working in the obstetricals department, in cardiac surgery as an assistant, and communicating back and forth with my specialty colleagues in my community family practice. What I hear from my specialty colleagues is that they have workflow issues. They have issues around the number of referrals that come in, sometimes the number of inappropriate referrals that come in, or incomplete referrals. To address that need, we actually developed within Fraser Northwest the Pathways tool to category every physician specialist in the province. What do they need? What do they see? What do they don't see? And what do they need to actually make those practices visits more efficient? We hear that there are workflow issues around patient notification of appointments, and there's discussion back and forth between family physicians and specialists about whose responsibility is it anyway. Pathways is at the moment developing a patient referral tracker, which will allow electronic communication from GPs to specialists and eliminate the need for phone calls back and forth, notifying the patients directly of appointments. This will help to mediate that to a certain extent. I think that I hear from my specialist colleagues that they have difficulties with their health authority and access. And I've been at several meetings in the last 2 weeks trying to address the crisis of access to gastroenterology services in our health authority, as Fraser Health is struggling with low access to gastroenterologists to the point that our local gastroenterologists have actually stopped taking new referrals because of the sick people on their wait list getting sicker and not being able to be triaged any faster through the system they have, and they've put their foot down. So the solution to that is very, very complex, but meeting with our gastroenterologists, meeting with our health authority representatives, understanding how we can build efficiencies and where the problems lie is how we're going to approach that particular problem.
Q. Lloyd?
Yes, I largely agree with that. Well, I feel somewhat familiar with this because as Chair of Council for Specialists of BC, I set the agendas for the meetings, and the things that bubble to the surface are quite numerous. I think one of the things that's a real problem that the specialists would like some action on would be supports in practice. The specialists are an extremely non-homogeneous group, and channeling some of that energy into productive solutions is no small task. So there's not a one-size-fits-all for specialists, but there are some common themes. One of which would be, could we get some more help in the office? Whether it's a practice nurse or something like that is an area that we're looking at exploring. One of the others would be overregulation, and it has driven, especially the procedural specialists, crazy to have restrictive regulations brought in from the college that make it very, very difficult to offer procedures in the office. This is a catastrophe, potentially, because patients may be denied access to procedures or services and have to land up in the hospital where the squeeze is on even more. So that's afoot. We also see some move towards trying to work with SSC on things like access codes, telephone fees, for example, group visits, perhaps. Those are things that may span across the spectrum of specialists more than some other types of solutions. Overhead and MOCAP have also been hot button issues. That has recently been redesigned, MOCAP, and just being released now. Overhead has been a topic. It's a perennial topic. It's a very divisive topic. Doctors of BC actually has been doing an overhead study for the last few years. The problem is that you get into deciding who is worth what, and that's never an easy road to go down. And I wouldn't suggest pursuing it particularly. But those are some of the elements that have been up at Specialists of BC.
Thank you. I think, do you have you want to ask? I think that most probably will be our last question, depending on how long it takes. We're sharp out at 8:50, right?
Thank you, Dr. Garg. I'm Jeff Dressleis. I'm a GP in Burnaby and New Westminster. I'm a previous president of the Westminster Medical Association and current chair of the board of directors of the Doctors of BC. My question is kind of relates a little bit to what we heard a bit earlier on the question of team-based care. There's a lot of push these days is primary care, and what team-based care is meaning is kind of a big part of what's happening in the GP world. And given the role that you're both anticipating wanting to do, and your role as being spokespeople for the association, not just for the public, but also to physicians, I'm curious how you think you could use your role specifically to advance the idea of team-based care among specialists, particularly pushing the envelope of how the specialist voice could be heard at that planning table, getting specialists involved as well, and participating in team-based care, because they are a critical part of that we're not hearing as much about as we do about GPs. So just your comments for both of you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lloyd, your turn.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Well, I think some of the changes around SSC will be helpful in that. I think there's a greater voice now for specialists to participate on SSC more directly. The past president of the Specialists of BC, John Falconer, is going to be on SSC. And I think that those sorts of moves will be very useful for making sure that what solutions are that get developed or actually have perhaps more of a plug-in from the specialist community. I would go back and talk about supports for specialists in their offices. Although people may have very different craft they practice, everyone could use a bit more help in the office and may be able to expand the capacity of specialists to do things. There's also issues of access of specialists to GPs by phone or by Skype, that sort of a thing, the electronic access. Those ideas are already being looked at and developed. I would see those as being potentially quite fruitful. Building the fee structure for that, I think, is the work of SSC.
Thank you. So I think there's two issues when you talk about team-based cares, because I do believe that our specialty colleagues in a large number of specialties are already participating in team-based cares. And I would cite our atrial fibrillation clinics, our coagulation clinics, anticoagulation clinics that we do. Many of the neurology clinics are actually already employing nurses and other allied health professionals. Team-based care is not new to the world of the specialists. I think the rollout and what's going to be different in the years ahead is actually to the team-based care in the community as it applies to the GPs and how we incorporate the necessary specialists into those teams out in the community, and that's a different aspect. I do hear that our specialists want to be part of that conversation, and I think that it's important that we actually involve them in that conversation, because what a specialist thinks a GP needs to make team-based care work and what a GP thinks they need of their specialist to make team-based care work might not necessarily be the same thing. So trying to sort out ways that we can actually wrap those services around the patient, around a primary care center, a primary care home, and incorporate both primary care and specialty services as necessary is going to be a challenge and take some discussion.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the hour has gone fast. Now we still have concluding remarks for the two. But I just wanted to thank these two individuals for putting themselves and really doing a fantastic job. So thank you. Thanks. So they have the concluding remarks. Each one gets 2 minutes, and I think you went first, so I'll start with you for the concluding remark, and then we'll end the evening with you.
Thank you very much. So I'm sorry there wasn't an arm wrestling match or something, Arun. I know you were looking forward to some fireworks at that night.
No, it was perfect. It was perfect.
So in my concluding remarks, I really would like to encourage us to look to the future for our organization. My broad experience and varied experience has actually given me good insights into the daily struggles of both GPs and specialists as they try to deliver high-quality care in an under-resourced system. It's going to take someone with respectful, inclusive, nonpartisan leadership skills to help co-design a system that best serves our province's population and allows our profession to be propelled upwards in the position of influence. I think that it is important that we succeed by embracing and fully embracing the diversity of our organization. I don't think that we can do that without that. I think that we can look at what's involved in that and what we need in a leader and advertise for ourselves, each one of us, in our closing remarks. I think that I have the practical knowledge, the specific knowledge and practical hands-on skills, the passion and the patience to bridge the gap between our various diverse voices and build a united voice. I bring a track record and a fairly significant track record of successful examples of collaboration with my GP and specialist colleagues, as well as my health authority and community members in leading meaningful, effective system improvements and workflow improvements. I think that anyone who has ever used pathways in this province understands that I am a major change maker. I believe that I do represent unity for our organization. I represent diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And I am offering my services to you as President-elect for Doctors of BC for 2018 and 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Oh, well spoken. Well, I agree. We have a tremendous asset in front of us, and it's our membership. It's diverse, it's knowledgeable, it's expert in medical care. I feel that I've gotten to know all of those attributes of the membership over the many years that I've worked within Doctors of BC. It is a challenge and also a rewarding challenge to work with diverse groups across the span of the membership. As Chair of Council for COPE, I had 8 subcommittees under my charge. It was a heck of a bucking bronco ride, I can tell you, because there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of knowledge, and corralling that to meet common goals was one of the larger rewards of the portfolio I've had at Doctors of BC. I think we definitely want to learn more about the membership, where the RA is an excellent starting point. I'm glad that we're reaching out across the province with regional advisors to hear more about what our members need. That progress has to continue. I think the broad experience that I've had on the board in governance positions gives me insights that will be important as a president to bring corporate memory and also knowledge to participate with the board over the couple of years ahead. So I hope that I can persuade you to consider my candidacy and will give me the honor of serving you as your president-elect in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, over to you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we come to a close, and I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. And all of those of you who are watching online, I hope that this was somewhat enlightening to all of you. I especially want to thank the Canadian Medical Association and John Bannerman, our Canadian Medical Association regional rep, for the generous sponsorship in terms of this event and in terms of the ongoing work that's being done around building communities of practice, something a lot of people are going to hear more about across Canada. I really want to thank both of you as participants, Lloyd, Kathleen, and Arun, especially for a second time coming around to do this for us. Thank you very much to both of you. I think this is very exciting in the sense this is the second time we've had this, and one thing was really interesting is having an accountant feed in from the outside, which says something in terms of our engagement, not just across the profession, but across the public, in terms of people who really know perhaps what goes on within the confines of the finances of doctors. So one thing we've got to look forward to is that the Canadian Medical Association, there are now going to be province-wide elections for the directors of that association, and hopefully similar debates like the one we've seen tonight broadcast simultaneously across the country, that everybody can participate and any member can feed in directly either with an email ahead of time or through a direct SMS as we've seen tonight. So congratulations to the three of you for once again setting the stage, bringing us to a new level in our modern day communication as we embrace technology, youth, and the upcoming energy and medicine. So thank you very much everyone tonight. It was a great evening and really fun having you all with us. Good night.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You too.
You have a picture.
Oh, we want a picture? Okay, my new best friend here.
All right, so I'm gonna.
Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
In no particular order. Well done.
Thank you, Charles.
You made it, both of you.
Thank you.
And Arun.